What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Triple Overtime. It has been a while. As always, it's your boy, Austin Snyder, joining me, Dylan Holloway, Amaar Burton. It's been a little bit. We've had a bit of a crazy life events for everybody going on. I know, Amaar, you just had a huge move down to a completely different point of the world, or country at least. Dylan, you've been rocking and rolling with your internship stuff. It's late, all right, long day of work. I forgot what a map looks like. Anyways, the United States is the only country in the world.
You moved from Washington to Nevada, dude.
Is that not a whole different part of the country? All right.
You know, it feels like it though. Like
technically a different part of the world, right?
It feels like it. Like I feel like I'm on the equator. So yeah, it might actually be a different part of the world. Like
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, Amaar, how did that move go? What's been going on, you guys? I mean, how you guys doing?
Man, yeah. So I moved from Seattle to Las Vegas. So I'm just down here. I'm trying to fit in, with the locals. Got my Vegas Knights shirt. I think they might have got knocked out of the playoffs tonight. I don't know because I don't watch hockey, but I have a shirt. Even though I don't watch hockey. Anyway, yeah.
Big super fan over here.
Hey, I'll give the Golden Knights credit. They won the Stanley Cup their very first year in the league.
They didn't win the Stanley Cup. They went there and they lost.
They got there. They didn't win it.
Oh, I thought they won.
Yeah.
No. And now all hockey fans, like if they have tuned into the show for the first time, they're never tuning in again.
They're gone. Yeah, they're gone. They're already gone.
Don't ever look up at Austin Snyder 90 on Twitter.
I've never talked hockey on the show.
Not big hockey fans around here.
Yeah. But yeah, so moved to Vegas, got a new job, which I'm starting next month. So I'm kind of going from covering hip hop back to covering sports. So that'd be cool. And the Twins had their first birthday and their first birthday party recently. So that's cool. Got through that first year. What else? It's super hot down here. So yeah, it does feel like a different part of the world. I might be in the southern hemisphere for all I know. It's ridiculous.
No, at this point, it's not, bro. I mean, we're fitting to hit 115, 117 degrees here in the southeastern part of Washington next week.
Was like 115. Like today was 90, and it was like, oh, this is cool. Like
I know we might as well be next door neighbors at this point,
degrees. Man. What else is going on with me? Yeah, that's it, man. We're just unpacking, trying to get this house in order. Yeah. So, and it's been a while. I feel like I haven't talked to y'all in a month or something. It's been a little bit.
Well, at least not on here.
Well,
it has been like 3-4 weeks since our last episode, right?
I think so.
Our relationship is purely business. We don't even speak until we get to set.
No, literally the minute that we come into the
I don't even know Dylan's last name. It just says Dylan on the screen. Yeah. I'm like, oh,
exactly. And let's keep it that way, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Dylan, let us in. What's going on in your life, Dill?
Not a whole lot. Like you said, I got the internship where I'm covering Jersey athletes. So unfortunately, the last Jersey athlete, Kyrie Irving, got eliminated from the NBA playoffs. So now I'm like, what do I write about now? So maybe do some features or something like that, or find something else going on, because I got this internship until July 31st, unless I find a full-time job is the rule, I guess. So, I can, but I mean, putting in applications, doing what I can. So other than that, just been following the NBA playoffs and just trying to get healthier, because it became very unhealthy for a while there in terms of like eating and not exercising. And it became such an easy thing to like not go outside as much,
Yeah, that was probably my biggest problem through the pandemic because Dylan, what in the world?
You can tell we're a bit rusty here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Why does it keep doing that?
We have not had a show in a while, and you can tell we are kind of fumbling and bumbling here.
Right.
So,
anyways, Dylan, as you well know, I'm a bit of a procrastinator, nor do I like to really do anything outside of my house. I love playing video games, etc. So through the COVID, all of 2020, it was just really easy to just be like, well, we're in a pandemic, so I might as well just hang out in my bed for the next 10 weeks. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You know, like it's like you couldn't go to the couldn't really go and do what is happening. Anyways, couldn't really do much out in public, you know, in terms of like going and playing basketball, couldn't go to the gym or anything like that. So I had a little gym in the basement, but that's not the same. You know, it's hard to be as motivated to go work out in your own basement as it is when you have an actual gym. Because once you get to the gym, you're like, well, I'm here, I have to work out, you know. Whereas my basement, I'm like, well, what's going on upstairs? Maybe I should go back up there, you know. So but I mean, not too much has been going on besides that. We seem to have lost Austin again. I'm not sure what's going on.
I don't
there.
know what it keeps stopping my video. All right, we're good.
With the
We're
home
there.
workouts, right? So we have like an actual like house now instead of an apartment. So we have a garage, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can work out in the garage. I got my little, you know, my little kickboxing bag out there. And then down here, like you know, there's no AC in your garage, so the garage is like ridiculously just muggy and hot and gross, and like you don't want to be in your garage for more than like a few seconds. So now I'm kind of like rethinking this. Okay, how am I gonna actually like work out at home, because the garage thing, like I don't know, like that might not work. So
Not feeling that.
yeah, so I gotta find a gym. Good thing though, you know, if you're into martial arts, living in Vegas is cool because there's a million martial arts gyms out here, because there's a bunch of like boxers and MMA fighters that like live in Vegas. So finding a gym shouldn't be a problem. It's just, yeah, the working out at home thing is just like, nah.
Yeah, I don't even bother buying like weights or anything that in regards to that homework, because I know I just won't do it. You know, I'm always like, man, that's just such a good idea. And then I really think about it. I'm like, nah.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, you've been like, haven't you been camping like up and down the East Coast? Like, you know,
so I went
backpacking across the greater Northeast area, right?
I don't know if it was backpacking. I mean, I went in Connecticut. I stayed in Connecticut for about a week or something like that, and went hiking. Came across a snake and came across a bear on the same hike there. I told you guys about that.
Yeah.
And not just like I saw a bear, like, you know,
literally beat the crap out of a bear. Like, put him up, took him down.
If Dylan moves his head, you can see he has the hides behind him. Like he's got the bear. Like,
round and a pound,
and
baby.
he got the snake skin. Like,
let's please not get PETA after me now. So,
no, the bear. That was self-defense. Like
the bear was maybe like 50 yards away, and I was coming downhill from it's like a hike where you go all the way up and then you go all the way down, right? Mm-hmm. And he was just off the path about 50 yards down, so there's no way to like avoid this bear, right? I couldn't like sneak past it if I wanted to stay on the path. So I just did what I've always read in like survival and nature books and, you know, all those guides and everything. It's just like made myself as big as possible and yelled and made the bear aware of my presence. The only thing I could think of to say was, "Get out of here, bear," at the top of my lungs, and it worked. The bear ran away. So, you know, I'm not pretending to be some tough guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, Austin has this mic where anytime he screams too loud, it completely silences him, which is good for us because Austin is loud, but it's bad for the show because now we just have Austin sitting there yelling like he's in a voice-proof room. Yeah. So, we're really having a bang-up show here.
You know, and I get that it's probably instinct, but like, why do we call the bear like it knows it's a bear? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think a bear knows what it's called. So like, but if you came across a bear, you'd be like, "Get out of here, bear!" Right? I
think because the bear and I are not on a first name basis, and I did not catch his driver's license before I yelled out to him, so I didn't know.
But he doesn't.
Maybe his name is Joe. I don't know.
He doesn't know he is a bear. You know what I mean?
I don't. You know, it's silly, but it's like the only thing I could think.
Like,
of.
Do you think when he's possibly like you know, growling or whatever the noise is that bears make, he's like, "Hey, human! Hey, get out of here! Hey!"
I think another reason why it's good to say bear is because if there's someone else on the hike, then they're like, "Holy crap, there's a bear!" You know what I mean? Like,
I thought you were going to say so the other animals don't think you're talking to them.
Yeah, I don't want the squirrel can stay. The bear.
Yeah. So the wolf is like, you didn't.
He's like, oh, no, yeah, all right, cool. No, I'm fine.
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
The mountain lion that's stalking me from behind is like, but I'm cool, right? I'm staying. So
we're way off track at this point.
Yeah. So what?
That was our outdoor sports segment.
Our outdoor sports segment. So you guys catch Scottie Pippen versus Kevin Durant. Scottie Pippen said KD, and he's referring to the Nets-Bucks series specifically. KD, as great as his offense was, it turned out to be his worst enemy because he didn't know how to play team basketball, Pippen said. He kept trying to go punch for punch. So I guess he did say he explained why he's no LeBron James before that too. I can't see what that says.
That quote I literally just pulled directly from the GQ.
But I was going.
He did say that.
I'm more talking about the punch for punch thing, though.
Right.
So because that's what Kevin Durant was directly.
Because he's kind of alluding to like KD's ego got in the way, right?
Yeah.
And then
is that the case though? I mean, we're talking, and here's, I guess, like I agree with Scottie Pippen. Like,
let me give KD's response real quick. So KD responded, "Didn't the great Scottie Pippen refuse to go in the game for the last second shot because he was in his feelings? His coach drew up the play for a better shooter." And if people don't know what I'm referring to, it's the playoff game. Jordan had retired at this point. Phil Jackson drew up a play for Tony Kukoc to get the last shot. Scottie Pippen was so frustrated and angry about this, he refused to go in the game. Like he just like. And if you read interviews or stories about it, like he didn't say like, "Hey, coach, I'm sitting this one out." He just sat there and like literally refused.
Yeah, wouldn't go on. Like
Phil Jackson was furious about it afterwards. Mm-hmm. Bulls still won the game. Tony Kukoc got the shot off. Bulls still won the game. And then Kevin Durant went on to say this guy Scott, which is hilarious that he called him Scott, also wanted to enjoy his summer, so he chose to rehab during the season. LOL, yo, at Scottie Pippen. They followed Phil, not you. So I mean. It's obvious that like Kevin Durant, took offense to it. But the funny thing is, it's that Scottie Pippen was just talking about how he was the real leader of the Bulls. Right. And I didn't think about this at the time. How can you be the real leader of the Bulls when you're mad about not getting the ball at the last second shot that you flat out refused to go in the game?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine another one of these famous leaders? Like let's say LeBron, for example, right? Let's say for some reason they drew up the play for someone else besides LeBron, and LeBron goes, "Well, I'm not going in." People would they would destroy him. Like
they crucify him.
Well, so during LeBron's last run with Cleveland, there was that game where he hit against Chicago,
right?
And apparently they had drawn the play up for someone, probably Kyrie or something, or was he on the team? Anyway,
I remember that.
I guess LeBron was like, "No, like I'm taking it," and so he basically was like, "This is the play we're running." Right.
But I guess that's also a bad example because at that point, like Pippen was definitely not at the status of LeBron. At that point in Cleveland.
So I'm saying like an example of how did LeBron react to them drawing it up for someone else,
and even that is more admirable than just not going in the game.
Right. Just throwing a tantrum on the bench
out there. Yeah. Right?
Because Pippen is still a factor in that play if he's not getting the ball because he's at least a diversion.
He's a diversion. He's a big body guy that if a screen needed to be set.
Because he's such a good passer.
I think, he was the inbounds guy or something.
He was supposed to be the inbounds guy?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. But so I mean, what do you guys think about this? Do you think Kevin Durant is like justified in going back at him, like trying to body him up on those quotes? Or
absolutely.
Because
especially it's so fresh for KD. Like he, the Milwaukee series just happened. He's probably still mad about it. He's probably still sensitive about it. And, he sees this quote from Scottie Pippen talking about, as hard as KD played and as well as he played in that series, Pippen's like, "Oh, well, you messed up here." Right. And then kind of going at his, being a good teammate, saying that, you were essentially what I heard in that quote was Pippen was saying, you got too focused on like the one-on-one battle and you were trying to get yours instead of being a good team player, which I think that's why KD referenced the Pippen not going in the game, because that was Pippen not being a good teammate. Right. I understand KD getting mad about it and clapping back at him. But this is just kind of what's going to happen because, I saw George Karl commented on this, and he was basically like, he was like, can you imagine Larry Bird or Magic Johnson talking about another player like that? And he's like, great players should just stick together or lift each other up. We're just in a different climate now where, great players have media jobs where they're supposed to say controversial things like Shaq and Barkley and guys like that. And Scottie Pippen, he's trying to push this book, and he's got this GQ article where he's trying to sell his book. And so what helps do that, say controversial things like talk about KD, talk about LeBron, talk about I was the real leader of the Bulls. Like, so now it's like you don't know what is, people just kind of saying stuff to get that attention. And so, you're going to get these moments where,
how genuine is Scottie Pippen in that thought process?
Yeah, that's kind of what now KD's going to come back at him. Like, that's just how it is now.
That's kind of what it feels like to me, is him getting the attention for the book or whatever, because it just seems like Scottie's trying real hard to like put himself out there right now, which I mean, I don't blame him. He's got a book coming out and everything. So why not get the book? And like, this is obviously working because we're talking about it right now.
Right.
So it's not like he's being unsuccessful in this, but, at the same time, I think it's different too when it's like an older player who no longer plays, because it's like you're not even playing right now. So it's a little unfair to like criticize the guy who still is playing. And especially in that game, like in that series specifically, if he's only talking about that series specifically, because I know he mentioned LeBron, but it seemed like he was talking about the Bucks Nets specifically to me, at least in what I read. If he's only talking about that, it's like if he actually watched the games, like where else was KD going to go? Like, I know like Harden was still playing technically, but definitely wasn't the Harden of like, all right, go and get yours, like he still had some rebounds and like few assists.
Well, they weren't even playing the type of defense on Harden that they typically would.
And on the last possession before KD had that air ball in overtime, he tried to give the ball to Harden. Harden gave the ball right back.
And that's what's so confusing to me. And like, again, I get it, the headline, clickbait, whatever portion of it. But at the end of the day, like, dude, they had like a 6'5" guy built like a guard out there playing center. Like, who did the Nets have? Harris was an absolute non-factor through most of that entire series, not most of it, that entire series. Harden was absolutely like, nowhere to be seen because of his injury. After we saw the fact, Kyrie went down and everything, like we saw, it was Kevin Durant. So like, and I think that one of the biggest reasons Kevin Durant was so quick to clap back was because, like, I think that this playoff loss hurts him worse than any other one, because this was like his real true moment to like finally get away from like all that negative press and energy that he got from joining the Warriors. And the fact that like it is very much apparent to a lot of people that follow basketball that like Kevin Durant could never get it done on his own in Oklahoma. Like even with Harden and Westbrook, like he could never help them get to that, elevate to that next level. Granted, they were young, but like he could never get them to that point where they won a ring, right? So we're at this point where like this was his series and he was doing it. He was carrying this team as best as he possibly could, and he just came up short. And I agree. I like when I think of Kevin Durant, I don't really think of like a big leader type teammate, make everybody better around him. No, I think of the Kevin Durant that I saw in this series, and that's a guy who's just an absolute assassin on the court. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I also think some of those like criticisms are so unfair because it's not like he took 100 shots a game. I mean, Joe Harris missed everything, right? Like James Harden was very bad in that last game, in that game 7. It like there was just, he had literally, I would say he had no help, and he couldn't get it done on that very last shot, plain and simple. I mean,
this was his stage, like you said. I mean, like LeBron was out, Curry didn't make it in. Like he was the best player remaining in the playoffs, like the most high profile player left in the playoffs, and like this was kind of his stage, and the path was kind of cleared for him to like, okay, you can win this title, you can go take this. And
he can cement his legacy as the best in the world.
No one's going to say, oh, it's not really his team like they did with Golden State, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm sure it's frustrating for him. Like he had it, and then these injuries happen to the team, and then they're out in the second round. So he's probably extremely frustrated. And yeah, like you said, it might.
I almost think that part of him like wasn't as upset about losing Kyrie and a healthy Harden as like we would assume, just because it gave him that. Like it was so apparent in Golden State that like Kevin Durant hated the fact that like he was never, that he was the best offense. He was the best player on that team, plain and simple. But like Curry was always still continually looked like he was still in Curry's shadow, right?
Yeah.
So like he had none of it in this playoff series, and he just couldn't get the job done. I mean, granted, hey, his foot is half an inch back, 2 centimeters back, whatever. And all of a sudden we're talking about a Nets team or a Kevin Durant that carried a Nets team to an absolute ridiculous win on an insanely clutch last second turnaround shot. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, them size 17s did you dirty there, Durant. I hate to say it, brother.
If only he had size 6s on, right?
Right.
So let's get into it here. So let's continue talking about the NBA. We're right in the middle of the NBA Conference Finals, and as it stands, the Hawks are up 1-0 on the Bucks, which I think is surprising to many, and the Phoenix Suns just dropped their first game, lost the first game in the series to the Clippers, so it's 2-1 Suns now. Which conference finals matchup? I know it's 1 versus 3 games, which is kind of weird. Which conference finals matchup to you has been, I guess, the most entertaining or intriguing so far? Like, what are your picks? Just what do you guys think about it? Austin, you start.
So far, I am absolutely loving. I mean, both of them really. That the Phoenix game 2, that was insane. The ending, the finish, everything. I mean, these are just very, very good games. And I gotta say, this is probably the first playoffs that in a long time that like I make a point, right? Like usually I'll catch the important games, the elimination games, I'll watch the box scores, all of that stuff. But no, I am making a point every single day to watch every single minute of every single game that I can because of how amazing these games are. And it is so cool to see these younger teams, other than PG and PG-13 and Kawhi Leonard there, though they are younger or Kawhi's younger, whatever the case. But it's cool to see guys like Devin Booker and the Suns and Trae Young and the Hawks and Giannis and all, you know what I mean? Like this is such a cool dynamic to see. I'm really interested to see how the Bucks come back against that absolute insane performance by Trae Young. Personally, I still have Bucks taking it in 6, and I have Phoenix taking it in 5. So I think that's the only win the Clippers get. I think that they're still going to be very close games, but especially with Chris Paul able to kind of knock some of that rust off tonight, as of the night that we're recording this was game 3. But being able to knock some of that rust off, as we saw in the last series, I mean, he has the ability to come back and really put on a show and get things going, rocking and rolling again, So, but man, I got to say, I am really torn because I really like Giannis and the Bucks, but I think I'm becoming a full-fledged Phoenix Suns fan. Devin Booker is incredible to watch. He is so fun. DeAndre Ayton is just an absolute beast, an animal. I mean, man, this is just such a cool, fun team, and they're so young that this is a team that you can really enjoy together for the next good handful of years.
Yeah, the Suns, unfortunately, they did not look very good tonight.
No.
I got the stat right in front of me from Scott Van Pelt on ESPN. Booker and Paul combined for 10 for 40 from the floor.
They were 1 for 14 up until I think it was like the very end of quarter 2. It might have been the entire first half, but yeah, Booker had hit 1 3-point. It was bad, dude. It was really bad.
And a lot of people are giving credit to Beverly and Mann's defense. So, I mean, who knows if that'll carry through to the next game? You got to imagine that Booker's gonna what are you waving me off there?
No, I'm not waving. I think Pat Beverly is the most overrated.
I'm telling you what people are giving them credit
I know, but I hate it because
let me continue here. Let me continue.
Okay,
You can go off on Pat Bev in a sec here.
All right.
Let me continue and then get to Amaar. I mean, I just don't know if they can keep it up, especially unless Kawhi Leonard comes back, which we still have like no update on. But Amaar, what are your thoughts on the conference finals so far?
It kind of seemed like Clippers Suns didn't really start until Thursday in Game 3. Probably because in the other two series, the Clippers have gone down 0-2 and then they come back. So it's like, okay, the Suns got the first two and Kawhi's not back and Chris Paul wasn't there for those two games. So it's kind of like, okay, when Chris Paul gets back, then, or if Kawhi comes back, then like the series really gets going, right? The Atlanta Milwaukee's kind of giving me like a like Trae Young and like an Allen Iverson role. Like he's going to win them one game with a monster performance, and then the Bucks might just win the next four.
Yeah,
because I think they're overall a better team, and Trae Young can't score 48 every game. Well, maybe he can. I don't think he can. Honestly, the most entertaining thing for me in these conference finals and just in the playoffs in general has been like the overreaction factor. Like with every game, it's like, okay. Paul George had the one, it was the game against Utah when they were on the brink and Kawhi was out. And it was like Paul George had a big game.
He had like 38 points. And I remember that.
It was like Paul George answered all the critics. Like he silenced the critics and, everyone has to shut up now. And then the other day he misses the 2 free throws in the clutch and now it's right back to
it's like an 87% free throw shooter.
Yeah, now it's right back to like, pandemic P, like, Kevin.
He went 5 of 10 from the line for the whole game. It wasn't just those two. Like he just didn't shoot well the whole game. Yeah.
And the first one, it wasn't even like a bad miss, like it spun out. It was
right.
I know those hurt. Kevin Durant, he had that one monster game against Milwaukee, and it was like, okay, that cemented him as like the best player in the world, and no one's going to have a game. And then
that's what's crazy. Like, really, that's the game. Game 1 of the second round of the playoffs is the game.
That wasn't.
It was the game like 5 or 6.
That was game.
Oh, that's
5.
right. Well, whatever. We're talking the middle of a series and the second round of the playoffs. That's the game to cement his legacy. Yeah. Not a championship win. Not a heavy Austin, game 7.
I think they're saying it made him the best
round series.
I think they're trying to say that made him the best player in the NBA right now, not like the GOAT or anything like that. Well, but it's too hard to measure that stuff off of just one game. Like if you went Durant's full series, makes him like a top 3 player, I can buy that. But one game is just
because that was the game after Kyrie went down. And so it was like, okay, now Durant doesn't have a super team. Harden's banged up, Kyrie's out. And it was the joke was like, oh, now he's going to choke, right? And he carried them in that game. And so it was like, oh, this one game, solidified him as the best in the world right now or whatever. And then, you turn around and Trae Young has the same type of game against the same team, but on the road. And he's like a foot shorter than Kevin Durant. And he dropped 48 and 11.
And he also hit some incredibly insane shots.
Now, like, what's the So yeah, just kind of everyone, just the overreactions and like, okay, the Devin Booker's the next Kobe and DeAndre Ayton's the next Tim Duncan and like Giannis is the next Kareem.
All of a sudden, Luka Doncic. I saw this too. Luka Doncic is the next LeBron James.
Huh?
I saw that comparison earlier this morning too. Luka Doncic is now all of a sudden the next LeBron James.
Yeah, I've seen Luka the next LeBron and Luka the next Michael Jordan, which are two completely different players.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Like every game is like, not every playoff game is some career-defining moment, and it's just people just need to kind of chill out and just.
I think they do. They just get so caught up in, and I think part of that is almost like. We are at a point in life, or we're at a stage with sports, especially coming off of the pandemic and losing so many sports for so much and just the change in everything that like you have so many people wanting to like, it's kind of like that old saying, if you watch The Office, Dunder Mifflin, shout out right there on my shirt. But Andy Bernard says it in the very last episode of the season. He goes, man, you never realize that you're in the good old days until you're no longer in them, or you never realize it is the good old days until you're no longer in them. Mm-hmm. And it's true. And so I think a part of it is people trying to like really like appreciate and capture these moments or these big games and to realize like, hey, we do need to appreciate them for how incredible and historical they are. But with that also comes like this ridiculous over exaggeration that every time a player has, let's not forget that Jeremy Lin at one point was rattling off like 35 a night over a 10-game span. You know what I mean? So like to judge any one player off of a single game or even just a single playoff series to all of a sudden put them in this next elevated status of legendary or whatever.
Were we Donovan Mitchell's the best player in Jazz history?
Right.
When they were up
that was
2-0,
Stephen A. Smith, right?
Yeah, they had a 2-time MVP award winner who finished his career third all time in NBA points. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell, who can't even get to a conference championship.
He was second all time in NBA.
Or second, I apologize. Yeah,
Karl
second
Malone.
all time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Donovan Mitchell, who can't even get to a conference championship, let alone multiple finals appearances against Michael Jordan, is the best. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Absolutely, 100%.
Plus, another thing, I really hate the like comparison of I like comparing eras.
Right.
Like in the sense of like LeBron is the greatest of this era and Jordan was the greatest of the last era and whatever before that. Same with football because the rules and everything are so different now that I think the LeBron versus Jordan debate is just nonsensical.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like or Karl Malone versus Donovan Mitchell.
You could never compare it apples to apples, dude. You could never do that because the landscape of the game as a whole is so much different. It's just a whole different. It's the same game.
And I'm not bashing either era in terms of, like that's what they had. That's what the rules were. They played the players who were in front of them, the teams that were in front of them, etc. You know what I mean? Like it's not like Jordan or LeBron get to choose who they're playing next. Like this, that's not how it works. Like it's because people were like, oh, LeBron only had to play this such and such, or he played a super team every time he took the floor, or whatever your argument is. You know what I mean? It's like he doesn't choose who he's playing against, and they don't choose the rules either. So it's like it's almost impossible to compare these eras, in basketball and football. So I just don't understand like the whole.
Yeah,
and we're so quick to want to like compare these current players to legends too. Like I get player comps when they come out in the draft, but like DeAndre Ayton's the next Tim Duncan. Like, and that's not like something Amaar made up. We saw that online before we went on the air.
Yeah,
we've been laughing about it. I hope he watches the show. We've been laughing about it ever since. Because it's just like
I think too, it's like people want to get in front of it and they want to be like, no, because let's say if Devin Booker does have a Kobe Bryant like career, you want to be like, oh, I called that when he was 22.
Right.
And so everyone's jumping the gun. So like when the kid's coming out of college, they're like, oh, Trae Young's the next Steph Curry or whatever, because you see some similarities in their game and you want to like hammer on that. Because if Trae Young does become that great, you could be like, oh man, I called that before he even started playing, like, look how smart I am. So I think, like people want to feel smart. They want to feel like they know what they're talking about. And then that leads to people who don't ever want to come off of a position, even when they've been like clearly proven wrong, which is how you get Skip Bayless's and Nick Wrights and Rob Parker's and other people on shows I don't watch, but because we're stubborn.
Crazy though.
We're stubborn and we all think we're smarter than everyone else.
Of course. It's crazy. I mean, stuff like that is just so, again, we're talking, and especially when you're trying to make these compare. Devin Booker, I could see that just based on the fact that he's been in the league a few years. He's had some other like the guy put up 70 points in a single game. Granted, it was a loss, but put up 70 points in a single game. That's a very impressive and not something that, is going to be matched or happen again for a long time, if ever. But so I could see some of that, but DeAndre Ayton's been in the league like 3 years.
And why do we have to jump to like Why does it have to be that extreme of a comparison? It can't, like, DeAndre Ayton's got to be the next Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward of all time, 5 championships, like,
Right.
3-time finals MVP. It's not even like a comparison to someone else who's really
It can't be like, man, DeAndre Ayton really reminds me of like a Zach Randolph, or
it's gotta be like the greatest like players at their positions. It's just such extreme comparisons.
It is kind of funny though, because I will say, like, as a child, I used to play these basketball games, and some of you may remember, and I think they still do it in 2K, but like as you go to draft guys on your like franchise, it'll show you like what they think their ceiling and basement is. And it would make me so mad when I was younger, because it would be like the number 1 pick in the draft who was supposed to be like the surefire, like, good player, and like his ceiling was like Luke Ridnour of like the Supersonics or something. I'm like, what the hell do I want that guy for?
Let's not beat up on Luke Ridnour now.
No, I love Luke Ridnour. I think he was actually a huge fan favorite of mine. But
okay,
you get my
let's,
point.
Let's continue with the NBA here. Let's talk about some coaching changes. So, as of this recording, I don't think it's official yet, but the Dallas Mavericks are expected to sign Jason Kidd. He's the front runner, whatever you want to say. Pacers got a new coach. Celtics got a new coach. I think it's all of them off the top of my head. There might be some others coming and going. Amaar, which one of these moved the needle, if any of them for you? Which one gets you excited? What do you think of them?
I mean, the most interesting to me was Rick Carlisle, because he essentially left Dallas for Indiana. And you look at that on paper and you're like, well, in Dallas, you've got Luka Doncic, who's this like already a superstar. If you have a top 10 player in the NBA, you have a chance at like winning a title, right? So it's like, you look at it like, okay, Carlisle could have won a title in Dallas. You've got an owner that's gonna, spare no resource in getting you, the players you want. You're in a major market, all that kind of stuff. So it's like he's in a good situation in Dallas, and he's just like, yeah, no, I'm out. I'm going back to Indiana. It's not like he's from Indiana, like I think he's from New York. And it's like, Indiana's not as good of a team on paper. So you're just kind of like, wow, what's going on there? And a lot of people jump to the conclusion that like, okay, he must not like Luka Doncic. Like something's going on there.
Do you think, do you think there's a lot of truth to a lot of, not to cut you off, but there's a lot of rumors out there that there's like major dysfunction in the front, like not even to the point. So from what I've heard and understood, and some of that narrative may have changed over the last few days because I haven't been following the story as closely, but from what I've heard and I understood, that like Luka and Rick Carlisle, like that they didn't have a strained relationship, that Luka had no idea that like he was leaving, and a lot of like, from my understanding, was that a lot of the question was like, there's huge turmoil in the front office amongst like Rick and Mark Cuban and maybe some other players in that position or role or whatever, and that Luka, like, if anything, was like, whoa, what the hell's going on to, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I've heard that there was Carlisle and Cuban didn't necessarily see eye to eye, and Carlisle has been nothing but like complimentary of Luka since he left. But yeah, that was just an interesting move to me, to like kind of go to this a worse team on paper in a smaller market, somewhere that he used to coach there before and he had success there, but typically you don't see that. You see guys, if it's their choice, you see them climb, right? You don't see them kind of go, well, let me pull back.
That's what you saw with Doc Rivers, right? Like he let, I really do believe that was kind of a mutual. Doc's like, hey, I don't want anything to do with the way that Kawhi and PG are allowed to run this team, kind of thing. So I think he stuck, and then he immediately went to a playoff contender in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah. Well,
so
even with Philly,
he did that, and then he's like, all right, let me go to Minnesota and join the Timberwolves to try to turn their fortune around.
Like, they had a superstar, arguably 2 at the time. People consider Ben Simmons a superstar then. So he went from a really good situation to another pretty good situation as far as talent.
Right.
And yeah, but the Carlisle move, that was just like, well, like, okay, like, hey, I'm all for comfort, and I guess if you have lesser expectations, it's less pressure, and
Hey, maybe that's
Still
what
going to
it
make
is
good
too.
money. So
Maybe he was just bored too. We know,
Yeah, maybe he's looking for a new challenge and he saw some young, because I mean, granted, the Pacers aren't like, I wouldn't say that they're on the same like projection as maybe a lot of people would put the Knicks on, for instance, right now with like a young core and what they've been able to do. Yeah. But like I mean, the Pacers have some fairly decent young talent. Like they have a very young team that the right coach could potentially kind of mold and groom and bring up or whatever.
And from everything I read, Carlisle, like he loves coaching basketball.
Right.
You know, he is like a coach's coach or whatever they say. And he's also, I guess, a bit of, I've heard, like a control freak. There was the reason why him and Rondo didn't work out was because they butted heads because Rondo thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and Carlisle thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And so maybe Indiana was like, he looked at that like, oh, you know, like this is the team I can coach up. You know, like I like these pieces. They kind of fit what I want to do. And I'm familiar with this environment. I've been there before. So that might have been it. But yeah, to me, it was just kind of like didn't expect that. Didn't see that coming.
So personally for me, and I'll make this quick because we do want to move on a little bit, but if it does come true, which from everything that I'm seeing right here on my computer, in terms of whether you categorize it as strong front runner or expected or emerging, whatever, it sounds like Jason Kidd's going to become the head coach of the Mavs. I love that move, right? I think that Jason Kidd has done a really good job or has gained this reputation of being able to develop talent. What's interesting to me about that is with the hiring Jason Kidd, potentially, does that change the dynamic or the narrative surrounding Luka and Kristaps Porzingis? And the reason I ask that is because a lot of people credit Jason Kidd with getting like Giannis to where he's at, just because he was the head coach that kind of took over. And then that's when we saw Giannis kind of start putting his entire game together, started really bulking up and started to be, you know what I mean? Obviously Kidd had left after that when Giannis started winning MVPs and stuff, but a lot of people give him that credit for like kind of putting him on that path. So, I mean, do you guys think that changes at all the thought process? Because as of right now, the immediate answer that most people will give is that Porzingis is going to get shipped out at some point this offseason, and they're going to try to either bring in another superstar or figure out a way to build around Luka and Luka alone. But I mean, gosh, if Jason Kidd can maybe find a way to throw some weight on Porzingis and help him kind of develop some of those skills in terms of a defensive player, a post player that he really needs to work on, etc. I mean, does that change the dynamic of that relationship? And does that potentially, I mean, could he potentially be the guy to get them to the next level?
I mean, Porzingis was, as far as, you know, size, skill set, potential, he was right there, you could say, with Giannis at one point, right?
Oh, yeah. I personally was a huge fan of Porzingis. Yeah.
You know,
right.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, you could say that potential's there. I don't know, you know, health-wise. I mean, I know he had like a major injury, you know, how much of a factor that is. But, yeah, I mean, if Kidd kind of drew that out of Giannis, then maybe he can help Porzingis get to a higher level. I know Giannis was, like, devastated when Kidd left Milwaukee, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was like – I remember he was like – because they fired him, right? And he was, like, pissed.
Yeah. And it was, he was very, that was like one of the first times you saw Giannis kind of come out of his shell in terms of like getting in front of the media and then like speaking his mind about something in that regard. Yeah. So,
but yeah, I think you're right. I mean, like so much of the attention of the Dallas franchise is on Luka and everyone's like, oh, you know, whoever's coaching in Dallas, it's like, it's all about coaching Luka. But yeah, I mean, you got a really intriguing piece with Porzingis, so that could
and like I think a lot of people's immediate reaction is like, what is he going to do with Luka? But the fact of the matter, I don't necessarily think that he's hit his ceiling, but I also think that like we've seen what we need to see to know who Luka is going to be, right? Like we know the type of, maybe he becomes more consistently like elite at that level, but like we know who he is. I think with Porzingis, there's still some of that. Like there's still some shaping that could be done potentially, not only to help his career in the sense of the injuries that he's dealt with. But yeah, I mean, if he was able, and again, there's a lot of things that go, you know, obviously not only did was Jason Kidd able to pull that out of Giannis, but Giannis also put in the work and had the work ethic and the mentality and understanding and drive. And who knows if KP has that? Maybe he's just lazy or has a hard time understanding the play concept, whatever. Who knows? But I think that if that was not that he's going to make KP a MVP all of a sudden, but I think if he was able to kind of pull that elite play out of him more consistently, I think the Mavs could be really, really good. I mean, before his injury and the Mickey Mouse playoff bubble last year, as they say, quotation. I mean, like the Mavs looked like a pretty dangerous team. I mean, with Luka and Kristaps, they actually somewhat played really well together. And man, not only were they fun to watch, but they did some damage for a minute there until he got hurt.
It might also be a thing with sticking with the Porzingis thing. It might just not be a good fit on the team. You know what I mean? Like you've seen superstars go to different teams or stars or all-stars or whatever you want to say, and then they don't seem to score as much or rebound as much or whatever because they're put in different kind of offense, different kind of defense. Their role is diminished, their role is increased, whatever, right? Like, I mean, it could just be it's not a good fit with the team, or maybe the fit with the offense they're running or whatever. So maybe Jason Kidd, like you said, maybe he runs a different offense or maybe something else. I don't think it's just like, oh, Porzingis is just suddenly a bum. Like, because that's how I'm not saying you said that, but like a lot of people are like, he's a bum now. Like he didn't forget how to play basketball. Like, that's not how it works. So I know he had that ACL injury, but he was never like he's a skilled big. He's not like a just dominate with explosion jumping to the rim every play. He's
and that's the thing. Yeah, he is like a true stretch big, right? And that's where like people have such a hard time like really distinguishing those things. Like there was a particular person who was freaking out, not to get super off track, but about like Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is not garbage. They just need to run the pick and roll more. If they just ran the pick and roll more, then they would be blah, blah, blah. He'd be great. They'd be amazing, this and that. But like, it's more complicated than that, right? Because like Kristaps Porzingis is a stretch big. Joel Embiid is a post-up player who can shoot the three. Those are two entirely different skill sets. So you're not just going to run the high pick and roll with Joel Embiid when that's not like when he's at his best. He's at his best when you can get him the ball in the low post, as well as give him the opportunity from time to time to shoot from outside if need be. But that's not his bread and butter. And I think maybe that's some of the problem is that Kristaps just, I don't know. Because you would think with a stretch big, it would give Luka more opportunity to drive to the rim, to kick out, to shoot. It'd open up the floor more. So I personally cannot understand how that relationship on paper, it makes sense. That should be an incredible team and an incredible duo, but maybe personality wise, maybe they have different like political and religious beliefs. Who knows? Right.
Yeah. I mean, we don't exactly know, but let's move on to a little Major League Baseball here. What? We're talking about baseball on the show again? Holy cow. Austin's favorite sport though. Let's talk about baseball. Let's talk about the controversy with the pitchers, right? The substances, the sticky substances, the pine tar, whatever you want to call it. I've seen videos of several different pitchers getting checked for substances in the game and like being so frustrated they like start undressing on the field like they're Ric Flair doing a WCW promo, where he strips down to his boxers, if anybody remembers that, and then he's just like literally ripping his shirt out of his pants and taking it off.
My favorite meme reference. My favorite meme reference is the one from The Office where it showed when Dwight was dropping his pants and lifting his shirt to show Michael Scott that he didn't have a wire on it. Yeah. They're like, this is Max Scherzer on the freaking mound.
But is this, I don't really know what the question is that I'm phrasing here. Like, what do you, I guess just, is this like bad for baseball? Is this good for baseball because we're talking about it again? Because there's not a whole lot to, it feels like baseball season still hasn't started because like, what is even happening in baseball besides this, besides the games being played, the teams winning? If you're a hardcore baseball fan, you're watching baseball, right? If you're a casual baseball fan, though, like what is driving you to watch it? Like, is this driving you to be like, oh, I want to check this out? This is controversial. Like, Amaar, do you think this is helping, hurting? Do you think it's like, who cares? Like, what do you think?
I just wonder, like, why is this form of cheating not met with the same like outrage at steroids, right? If pitchers are using pine tar,
You mean why aren't players being put in front of a panel of judges on freaking Capitol Hill to answer for spider tag?
if they're using this stuff, like they're getting a competitive advantage, like
I agree.
cheating, which is the same thing with the steroids thing. It's like they're cheating, but with steroids, it was just like, oh my god, and you can't be in the Hall of Fame, and you've ruined the game. And then with the pitcher stuff, it's just like, oh, well, he got caught. Oh, it's just like people don't care as much, which is just kind of strange to me because like cheating's cheating, and if you're all opposed to cheating, then you should be ready to kick the someone.
Right, cheating especially to me. Cheating especially, it's an all or nothing thing, right? Like either you, and I've said it before, either allow everybody to use steroids or allow every pitcher to use spider tack or whatever. Right?
Let everyone steal signs and bang trash cans or wires and
or don't. Yeah, I mean, seriously, open it up. Open that Eden's or that Pandora's box.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Let's not make this the purge. Professional sports, all right. Let's not allow people to just.
Good job, Dylan. You just gave them the next great idea for the next Purge movie. We thought they were done, but now the Purge.
you gotta have the.
Okay, sorry. Back to your side.
You gotta do
sport. No, because it's cheating. That's not good for the sport. It is getting increased attention, so there's that, I guess. But I'm sure Major League Baseball would rather we be talking about them for something else and not this.
What is there to talk about, though? I guess is the real question.
They'd rather be talking about how great so and so is playing, or how great this team is playing, or this player is playing. Like the stuff that we can talk about in basketball and football because more people follow it, instead of like these pitchers are stripping on the field because they're accusing them of using crazy glue on the ball. I don't know what they use.
Here's the problem: is that now, Amaar, you would probably know this. Doesn't the MLB have a fairly new commissioner, like over the last 3 years or something like that?
Not 3. I mean, but yeah, he hasn't been around as long as like
newer or whatever, right? Like he's kind of he's the one,
yes,
right? He like trying to implement changes to make baseball better, kind of thing. So, and here's the problem with it is that one, they had implemented a ton of changes to speed up the game, which I thought was a great idea because I don't want to watch a guy trim his mustache and shake his freaking, wristband 17 times, dust his hands off. You learn how to play Beethoven on the piano before he pitches the ball, right? So, like, I love those kind of things, but
you
now
don't want it to be like a Giannis free throw.
I don't want it to be a Giannis free throw warm up, right? Like, not at all. And so that's the problem is that now we're just going completely backwards from that. And even worse is the reason that we is because it's a total knee-jerk reaction because the commissioner who over the last, 2 years or whatever, has tried to work on deadening the baseball and all of these different things to like make it a more competitive advantage where they're not just cranking home runs left and right over and over again. And, you guys may not, or Dylan, you may not understand what I'm talking about in that regard, but I know the people that are watching that do watch baseball.
That, yeah, I know.
Okay, so
they've increased the home run, and I think that's what pitchers are mainly. That's their main rebuttal to this. Is like, well, you're changing the rules, so the home run, so I have to do this.
Right, exactly, and so
that's competitive, which is not really a good excuse because they've changed rules for offenses in basketball and football. And I'm not saying nobody cheats on defense in those or nobody bends the rules.
Right.
But if you get caught cheating, you can't go, well, you changed the rules for the offense. What do you expect?
Right.
I've never heard that rebuttal on another sport. You know what I mean? Whereas in baseball, people are like, he's right.
And that's the problem. Game. That's the problem is that you have a commissioner and powers that be at that league that just have this knee-jerk reaction where they're like, okay, well, we just have to stop everything and check these guys nonstop. Right. Because you have that where these guys are so openly like, well, yeah, this is what's happening, so I have to be able to burp. And so it's just that I think it's a terrible reaction to it. I think they are absolutely going to be losing whatever momentum they gained from a younger generation of fan in regard to like enjoying the game. Yeah, maybe it's good for meme material, and there may be a few more people that tune in just to try to see the funny antics or whatever. but ultimately it's not good for the sport. It's just not. They need to implement some kind of actual system in place so that after every pitch, the skipper can't just say, yep, you need to go check him. Yep, that the velocity on that was too ridiculous. You need to go check him. Yeah, and that's where these pitchers are getting so frustrated. Like, man, at what point does the umpire just go, hey, look, man, we've checked the guy after, for 6 times by the 3rd inning. Like, he's not using anything. So stop, right? So they have to find some kind of balance to be able to capture the entertainment value that they're getting out of this, but also so that it's not getting so much over the top to the point that like those same people that are going to tune in to see the funny stuff are going to go, yep, now I remember why I don't watch baseball. It's like watching grass grow, I did like, man, we're in the 6th inning and it's been 18 hours. Like I haven't slept yet just because I want to see who wins this. I mean, it's crazy.
It is weird how baseball is such a different sport than the other big two, if you will. I don't know enough about hockey to include them in my description here, but I wish I did. I mean, they're part of the big four, but I don't know that much about hockey, full disclosure. But like, referees, because like you don't see that in like football or basketball too much, where you just completely stop the game to check some guy to see if he has something, like, and it's just weird that like in baseball, it's like, we got to shut it all down.
Right.
Let's take this time to check this guy. Whereas like in football, you can definitely use substances or ways of cheating or
could you imagine
in those sports?
Could you imagine if they stopped the game in that Colts Patriots game, if they stopped the game to check the freaking PSI on every single football that was in that stadium to ensure that Tom Brady wasn't like, how ridiculous does that sound? That's pretty much what's going on in baseball right now.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy to me. And just you were talking about Rob Manfred. He's been commissioner since 2015, by the way. So it's been 6 years. So it hasn't been that long. Yeah, he's not. But Amaar, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, long story short, like we should be talking about Max Scherzer and how great he is and how he's, adding pieces to this Hall of Fame career, and not talking about Max Scherzer because he's going nuts, taking his
dropping his
off
pants
because they're checking him for pine tar every inning. So yeah, that's why it's not good for the game. Like I should be talking about Max Scherzer's performance on the field, on the mound, and not his performance on the stripper pole. So yeah.
Well, there you go. So we're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, Amaar's got a segment for us that you do not want to miss. So we will be right back right after this.
Ba-boom.
So recently, Las Vegas Raiders defensive end Carl Nassib came out of the closet and announced that he's gay. And it got the kind of response you would expect from the side supporting him, also the side, criticizing him. People saying, why does he need to come out? Why does this have to be an announcement? Why does he feel like this has to be a big thing? You also have people supporting him who understand that, this is something that is kind of good for inclusion, good for normalizing. What stood out to me about Carl Nassib's announcement was the part where he talked about how he agonized over this decision for 15 years because he was afraid. Now, consider a few things about Carl Nassib, right? He's an elite athlete. He's a professional in America's favorite sport. He's 6'7", 275 pounds. Like he's strong, he's fast, he's tough, he's educated. Went to Penn State University, like decent looking guy. He's a millionaire and he's white. Why do I bring that up? Particularly, why do I bring up that he's white? Because Carl Nassib has every advantage and privilege that a lot of people would want in America, right? Like he's got pretty much everything going for him. He's living the dream of millions of American boys, right? You shouldn't be able to tell Carl Nassib anything. He should be almost like indestructible, right? Even with all that going for him, big guy, rich, NFL player, like celebrity, educated, all that, right? He was even scared to come out of the closet. He lived in fear, right? So if someone like Carl Nassib, with everything he has going for him, he was afraid to come out. Think about the younger person who is struggling with the idea of coming out, who doesn't have all that going for them. The skinny kid, the guy who's like nerdy, or, you know, isn't rich, isn't popular, isn't big, strong, tough, isn't an athlete, isn't beloved across the world, right? Think about like the hesitation that they're going to have to come out, and just kind of have a little compassion for those people in that situation, because, you know, you got this big like NFL player and he's even scared to come out. You look at it like, who's really going to beat up Carl Nassib for being gay, right? Who's going to bully him for being gay? Who is in a reasonable position to shame him or to make him feel bad about himself? Like, nobody can kick him out of their house. Nobody, I mean, he, you know, family member could disown him or something, but like, there's really, no one can really prevent Carl Nassib from doing anything in this life. He even said during his video announcement, he was like, I have like the best life. Like, he's like, I have an amazing life. And he does, right? He's pretty much got the golden ticket in life, especially in this country, for all the things that we value. And he was still worried about the consequences of just being himself and telling the world who he is. So just remember that, you know, there are countless people in the world who are struggling with the same fears and the same insecurities that Carl Nassib was struggling with, and they don't have all the things that Carl Nassib has, right? And just, you know, think about that next time you hear about somebody who, you know, didn't want to come out for a long time, or who was afraid to come out, and just understand that, like, you know, they don't have all these advantages, and that fear can be overwhelming, and they may never get to a position where they can muster up the courage to do what he did.
All right, guys, welcome back. Amaar, thank you so much for that segment. It definitely is on an incredibly important topic that deserves all of the chatter that it's getting around the world. And hopefully it just creates that domino effect moving forward, you know, so really, really important stuff. But, you know, guys, we are at the end of our road here. If you, the viewer, are still with us, you are a triple OG. That means you have stuck around from beginning to finish of this video, and we commend you. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the little bell there to make sure you're notified every time we post a new video for Deal Industries Worldwide as a channel as a whole, not just Triple Overtime. So any content that comes up, you know, I know Dylan's got another one that he's doing, another show he's doing called May I Take This Bump. That's definitely worth checking out, as well as future plans for more and more content. So, and aside from all of that, make sure you drop a comment below. Join the conversation. We are always responding, always replying. We love to have debates down there in the comments. We do enough of it on Facebook. We'd love to do it on the YouTube channel here. So make sure you're doing that, okay? Get involved. Let us know who you are that are watching our stuff, aside from, you know, our moms, our wives, and our friends that we constantly bug to make sure they get our views up. Anyways, thank you guys again. I had a great night talking sports. Anybody got any final thoughts, any final sentences, anything super duper quick that you can throw in?
Nothing great, man. I just got to, you know, actually start following this local hockey team here, blend in with the locals, and be a true Vegasite.
All of those things that you're saying sound bad. So
you almost brought back the hockey audience, and then
they're like, "Oh, mate, no, never mind."
I tried. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was right to turn it off in the first place.
I'm still waiting for the Kraken. So as soon as the Kraken, I'll try to.
They hired a coach. I saw that.
Yeah, as soon as they start playing, I'll try to start paying.
Next season, buddy, it's going to be good.
I promise.
We'll do that.
All right. Well, with that said, guys, as always, it was amazing. It was a great night. We are going to be back for many, many more. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Peace.